Hello friends! It is time for our Tinker Lab nonfiction book. It is called Arches to Zigzags, and Architecture A, B, C, A to Z. So, this is Michael J. Crosby and Stephen and Kit Rosenthal. This is our nonfiction book. Our fiction book was a story that was made up. Our nonfiction book is not made up, and it's facts. In this case, we're going to be looking at real pieces of architecture. And as we go through this, remember what we've learned from looking at Iggy Peck, architect, as well as what we've been discussing through the past week or two. And think about these different architectural elements, these different pieces that go into architecture when it comes to designing your own structures. Because remember, in class, a lot of us are trying to make our own, like Iggy Peck did, or like young Frank did. So let's get started. A to Z. I know you're all experts on your A to Z, but think of this as not only reminding us of our ABCs, but also, most importantly, learning new architecture terms. And so try to remember them. A is for arc. Here's our arc right here. A big yawning mouth welcomes people inside. Do you know a building that opens so wide? Hey, I like that. It rhymes. Inside, wide. Inside, wide. And look at that arch. So an arc or an arch looks a lot like an upside down U, and it's spelled A-R-C-H. Feel free to take a page in your notebook and keep track of the words you've learned and write them down, because as an architect, it's good to remember the terms, the terminology used when you're designing. Makes you sound extra professional. So A is for arc. And usually an arc is going to be for a door or to help make a structure like a bridge stronger. B is for balcony. Those of you who live in apartments, or those of you who've maybe gone on vacations or have visited family or friends, have maybe been somewhere with a balcony. A perch way up high to spy far and near. When you look from a balcony, what sights will appear? Again, we've got near, appear. So, yep, it's sort of like a door or a window on a higher floor with a little bit of floor sticking out for you to look out of or walk on. C. C is for capital. Crowning a column with corn leaves and wheat. Does this fancy capital look good enough to eat? So we actually got two different C vocabulary words here. A column is a cylinder. Remember, a cylinder has a circle top and bottom, and it's like a tube, like a paper towel roll could look like a column, and it's used like a pillar to hold up part of a roof. And on our column here, we have a capital, which is the top part, which is used if you want to be fancy and have decorations a lot of times, or to connect it to the roof. And this one looks like corn. Do you see the pieces of corn? And it looks like wheat, which is, you know, they grow very tall, and Miss Streeter might bring some in to show you, but you can also look it up on the computer. This wheat is being bent over because it's holding up the roof. All right, let's get to our next letter. Ooh, look at that. It takes up 2 pages. D is for double door. 2 doors make a double in blues, dark and pale. Which one has a knob? Which one is for male? So here's our double doors. And I see the doorknobs here, and they're talking about this slot. Sometimes people have a slot in their door to put mail through. But so some buildings have doors big enough that you need 2 doors that open out in order to fill the space. These are kind of fancier. A lot of houses are just gonna, you know, have 1 door. But maybe a hotel or a very, very big house, like a mansion, might have double doors. It's a style choice. Ooh, look at this house. This house is very new looking. E is for eave. Look under a roof for eaves broad and plain. Can eaves give you shelter from the sun and the rain? So again, the eaves are a part of a roof that can stick out. And again, if it's raining, you might stand underneath an eave to stay out of the rain. A bird might nest up in the eaves. So it's part of the roof that sticks out. Here's one here as well. is for finial. Fancy carved ornaments where pointy roofs stop. How many do you see at this house's tip-topped? Okay, so finials are like an extra, again, once you've built a house, you can make it fancy, you can add decorations. So these extra little pointy bits that don't do anything to keep the building up, they're just for decoration, and it's called a finial. So this person is decorating with finials. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 finials. And then we see actually under the eaves, they've done some decorating here above within the eaves as well. So that's pretty cool. Think about this when you're designing your own structures. G is for gargoyle. Yes, gargoyles. Goblins on buildings who perch way up high. Do these ugly critters look ready to fly? So look, this is called a gargoyle. It's a fantastic creature, and you'd see a lot of gargoyles in really, really old, big, kind of spooky or like old looking buildings. So for example, if you've watched the Disney movie The Hunchback of Notre Dame has gargoyles, and the gargoyles in that movie are alive. Notre Dame is in France, and it is very old, and I've actually been there, and it's some of these gargoyles are as big as people. And actually there was a fire a few years ago, and they had to redesign and rebuild. So not only are they making structures like this a long time ago, but sometimes if something happens to damage them, they have to know how they have to have plans and drawings to know how to fix it. So it was important that an architect had drawn these gargoyles and drawn out pictures of Notre Dame so that they were able to recreate it now after that fire. H is for hinge. We know about hinges. We practice with hinges. These metal parts help to swing doors or a gate. Can you find 4 hinges curled up like a snake? So yeah, I noticed. Oh, I really like that. Miss Streeter loves snakes. So these hinges look fancy. They look kind of like snakes. So you can see them there on that side, and the hinge actually goes in here, and it's the part of a door, the metal part that does this, that is the reason why the door itself moves. So hinges are really important. Otherwise you wouldn't have a door, you would just have a wall. Guys, I hope you're as excited about this as I am. I really like architecture. Okay, what's all this? Let's see. I is for I-beam. It's steel and it's heavy to make a strong frame. Can you guess how the I-beam got its capital name? So that's a good question. Can you guess how this I-beam got the name I-beam? So it looks like a straight, flat line from the front, but from the side, look at that. You can see that there's an I. And these are built like this because it makes them extra strong when you're building. So these are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in your structures. J is for joist. They hold up your house. Inside ceilings and floors. Are joists a lot like that skeleton of yours? Ooh, that's a really good point. The joists are kind of like the bones of the house. You put those in as one of the first couple steps, and they keep everything strong. So yeah, it's a lot like the bones in your body. K is for keystone. The stone in the middle holds this arch in place. Does it look a bit like a tooth in your face? So it's another kind of body part. They're talking about this. So again, when you have an arch, the arch gives your structure support, but then the keystone here is what gives the arch itself the support. Because if you can see it, have you ever tried to pick up a bunch of books at once that are in a pile and you kind of just really press hard? And if it gets too loose or not enough pressure or too much pressure, the books kind of pop out and they all fall. That's kind of how this arch is. You see those are stones all pressed together, and this keystone is kind of the tooth or the hand holding them and keeping that pressure so that the whole thing stays supported. L, this is a silly one. L is for log cabin. Logs stacked for walls make a cabin of trees. How many do you think to build one of these? So this is a log cabin. Miss Streeter loves log cabins. And you can see again, it's made entirely of wood. A lot of older houses were made out of wood, mud, stone before we got things like concrete and steel. That's pretty cool. Do you have a guess how many trees went into this house, this log cabin? M. M is for mantle. Carved wood surrounds this fireplace pretty. What would you put there besides a glass kitty? I don't know if you need anything else. I like that glass kitty. A lot of times people put like photos of their family, or like if they've found something or won something or invented something. It's a good place to display stuff. So this is your fireplace. Look, we see another arch right here with a keystone. And on the top, the board that sticks out above your fireplace is called a mantle. And so, again, this is where you would maybe put stuff, decorative stuff. Not necessarily stuff you need, just stuff you want to show people when they come to visit. N. N is for neon. Bright light that glows from glass pipes. What color would you add to these juicy stripes? So this is a neon light, and just like it said, it's kind of like the lights that are in your classroom. If you look up those strips, it's a glass tube, and inside of it is a kind of gas. So again, a gas is something that you could perhaps breathe in, but not necessarily. But it's in the air. It's different from a liquid like water or a solid like dirt. It's gas, and the gas in here is what helps make these different colors. And you can actually look up different kinds of neon lights online, and you can even in some websites design your own if you did it with mom and dad. But you can also, there's a cool DIY to make your own, but we'll leave it at that for now. Ooh, who recognizes this? This is the Washington Monument. And those of you in first grade, and those of you who will be going to first grade in the years to come, this monument is inspired by monuments and tombs in ancient Egypt, Egypt is a country in Africa, and ancient Egypt is the Egypt that was a long time ago. And they made monuments and structures like this. This is called an obelisk. O for obelisk. A towering needle made of stone by the ton. Do you know what obelisk is named Washington? So again, it's our Washington Monument. And again, if you've ever been to DC, Washington DC, you will have seen it in person. It's pretty cool. It would be cool if you pulled up on the internet the Washington Monument and then an obelisk in ancient Egypt, and you compared the difference in size. And the fact that the way they built this one here, they had methods, I think, that were different, but some that were the same. This is how every read aloud is with me. I get too excited. On tangent. All right, P is for porch. Places to sit with friends by the pack. Is a porch on your house in the front or the back? Miss Streeter likes wraparound porches personally. So look, this is the porch. You know, this is where, similar to a balcony, the porch is outside of the house, but it's extra floor where you can set up. Maybe you have a meal outside or you hang out with friends. Q. Q is for coin. It's a new word for me. Placed at the corner for strength like a rock. Could you climb this ladder of block upon block? So let's take a look. Ah, so this is what they call a coin. So again, it's another thing that makes your structure strong. So you have parts of your structure that are designed to make it look more beautiful and decorate it. And then you have parts of your structure that are important for making it strong. So this is what we're thinking about as architects when we design, is what am I going to use as parts of my structure to make it strong, and what am I going to use to decorate? R. R is for ruin. A building worn down by wind, rain, and time. Can you picture this ruin before its decline? So take a look. So a ruin is a structure that used to be like a building or a bridge or something, but over time has fallen apart. and there are ruins all over the world. One of my favorite ruins that I've ever seen is I went to the city of Pompeii, which got not swallowed up, but a massive eruption from the volcano Mount Vesuvius covered the entire city in hot gas and lava. And it's really cool if you go there because you can still see a lot of the buildings are preserved, which means that they were kept in the same way they were when they were covered. And architects really want to try to design in ways that make buildings last for a really long time. And if they can't, they have plans so we can study those. But when you have people like archaeologists and even sometimes cultural anthropologists, Mrs. Streeter's first college degree was in anthropology. These are people who get to come in now to places like ruins and study the artifacts and the ruins to learn more about the people and what life was like for them. S is for silo. A proud tower stands on a farm on the plain. What would you store here? Corn, wheat, oats, or grain? So there's a big silo. We have a lot of farms around us here at Glenelg Country School. And a silo is used to store things like corn, wheat, oat, grains, things that you'd either feed your animals or you would feed yourself. It's basically a really big storage system, which is pretty cool. This one's really tall, and it looks like you could even climb up the ladder and look in and check on it. So that's pretty cool. I know a story about someone who could tell you what your dreams meant, and when somebody had dreams about cows that were healthy and cows that were sick, he figured out that they were going to have 7 years of really good weather and then 7 years of bad weather and sick animals. And so they planned ahead and they filled all their silos over 7 years with plenty of grain. So then in the next 7 years, they had enough food to last them, which is pretty cool. All right, T. T is for turret, a curved painted spire with rooms in the round. If you look for a corner, could it ever be found? I think that's funny because, you know, circles don't have corners. Cylinders don't have corners. The round shapes don't have corners. So this is a turret. It's another kind of term for like a tower that looks like this. There's a turret in the manor house. Have you seen it? When you do pick up and drop off or even driving in on campus, you can see the turret in the manor house. And this one has a spire on top, which is again another kind of spiky decorative piece. We learned about, I believe it was finials were a spiky decorative piece. This is another version. It's a spire. Maybe that'll be our next. No, the S was silo. U is for urn, a jar with a lid, atop a fine base. Where do you spy urns at this elegant place? So they're using an urn as a decoration. Some people use urns to actually hold stuff, but this one is just a decorative one. Some people also can put plants in urns. V is for vent, a hole in the wall to bring fresh air through. Could this vent be home to a small bird or two? I love vents in buildings. So yeah, so we've got what look like tiny little windows, and they're used as vents. They're used to help air move through a building. So again, when you're building something, you need to think, how are people inside going to get enough air? Are you using air conditioning? Are you paying attention to the air? Do you have windows? Something to think about, especially because it gets hot in the winter or in the summer and cold in the winter, and you need to be able to move air around to help with that, especially the summer, especially when the summer is as hot as this summer was. W is for widow's walk. Between two brick chimneys with railings of white, what might you see from this rooftop site? So a widow's walk. So we have two chimneys, and they're saying that between the two is a widow's walk. I'm guessing it's, in this one, I'm going to have to make an educated guess, but it's going to be sort of up here. And I think it's kind of just like someone said something and kept saying it and it stuck. I wonder if there's another word for it, but it's It's this little area that you can be on top of a building, and people will maybe go up here if they need to fix the roof, or some people have it so that they can hang out up there. It depends on the building. I like in Mary Poppins, they kind of use their widow's walk to shoot cannons, but that's ill-advised in most places. Anyway, X. X is for X bracing. X marks the spot on a skyscraper tall. Without this strong bracing, do you think it might fall? So this is really cool. We talked about the I-beam and how the I-beam makes it strong. This is an X bracing. A brace is something that holds, it braces things together. And I think, look at this X, and to me, it feels kind of like it's giving the building a hug. And so when you make something like a skyscraper that's really, really tall, any of my friends who have ever built a tall tower know that the taller it gets, the more wobbly it gets, and the more likely it'll fall. But if your tower had this X bracing hugging it tight, it would be less likely to wobble and fall. So the taller a skyscraper is, the more important it is, again, for them to build it with a structure that is strong. And that's what the X bracing does. Cool, 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 cool. Remember that. I wonder what materials we could use to make X bracings when we build. Y. Y is for yard. Some houses have yards in the back, front, or side. If this were your yard, just where would you hide? It's a pretty big yard. I know my yard is not this big, but it's cool. I like yards with lots and lots of flowers, because then the bees and other pollinators like butterflies have plenty of food and plenty of places to go. Plus, as far as hiding places go, there's not really a lot of places. I wish there were some trees. You know, you don't want to hide under the table. It's clear. I could see you there. And you don't really want to go in these bushes because they're small and tight to the ground. So maybe over here in one of our big, I don't know if that's monkey grass, but in one of these spots. But then you're walking through a garden. So I don't think that they were planning very well for hide and seek. But we've got a yard, which is not so much the building, but it's something you can add to your building. So you have to think about, I guess I'll use the big word context. You have to think about where your building is and what's around your building, because that also is something to think about when planning a building or even a bridge or a road. Z, we're at the end. Z. Z is for zigzag. Up, down, and up. Zig's a zag of pastel. Goes right or goes left? Which way? Can you tell? So this one, again, is just decorative. Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to make zigzags, stripes, these cute little floral flourishes? What are you going to do to decorate your building when it's done? Because that's also part of the fun, is once you've built a building, you get to make it look as cool as you want. So young Frank made a building that was zigzaggy, and it was structurally sound, but then it looked cool. This person has chosen to decorate with color and with different shapes and patterns, which is pretty cool. All right, that brings us to the end of our story. And we have a glossary in the back, which is pretty cool. A glossary is at the back of a nonfiction book, first grade especially, and it is where you can go to remember terms and words you should know in the book. So when you're reading your books, you're going to have glossaries at the back of the nonfiction as well. So we see all of our words here. We say A is for arch, C is for capital, D is for double door, E is for Eve, F is for finial, G is for gargoyle, H is for hinge, I is for I-beam, J is for joist, K is for keystone, L is for log cabin, N is for neon, M is for mantle, N is for neon, O is for obelisk, P is for porch, Q is for coin, R is for ruin, S is for silo, T is for turret, and U is for urn, V is for vent, W is for widow's walk, X is for X bracing, Y is for yard, and Z is for zigzag. Congrats, friends. We got all the way through to the end of our book, and I would love it if you could work on some of your own architectural designs, your own blueprints, and maybe either print out some pictures of buildings or design your own and then try to label them with some of the parts that we've just learned the names of. So think of these architectural elements and architecture ABC and try to label some of them in drawings or pictures from the internet of different buildings. That's all for now. Bye, friends.